right, guys. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Friday Eve, pre-Friday. Whatever calls your phones.
Magandang hapon.
Yes, I got a hapon, as always. Yeah. So we're just gonna pick up right where we left off from yesterday.
Not yesterday. Monday.
Monday, yes. Man, here I am talking about the week. Here I am talking about which day it is, and I completely lost track as to what we were talking about last. Yeah, no worries. In that case, we're going to pick up right where we left off from Monday. So if there are no questions, let's jump right into it. The last time, we talked about all of the various prompts that we use in order to teach the clients skills to be able to build up their repertoire. Now, it's important how we introduce and to what degree we implement the prompts, because it's not always a one-size-fits-all. And if we're going to have somebody be able to do something more independent, we need to choose the right prompt at the right time. And that is where the prompt hierarchy comes into play. We essentially sequence the types of prompts we use based on their level of intrusion. You can think of it as just how much hands-on involvement there is for us to be able to get the client to give the correct response. And even if we're using the same type of prompt, there are various degrees of intrusion. For instance, we can say that doing something hand over hand, let's say helping a client write something, full hand over hand is going to be a little bit more intrusive than, let's say, physical guidance, where you barely touch their palm or guide their elbow. Something like modeling, we also want to be able to demonstrate the behavior. That is going to be a lot less intrusive than physical prompting, because there's no contact. There's no physical contact with the clients. And something like a visual is much more less intrusive, actually, than a model, because it's a static image. Then depending on the skill, verbal prompts, you can have a full verbal where you state the entire thing. For instance, we're teaching a client to say water, have the full word, water, or just a partial point of it, wa, or even you can say it quieter, what. I have a demonstration of that in a bit. Gestures are a lot less intrusive, and ultimately, the idea would be to bring everything under the control of just naturally occurring cues. The things in the environment tells us that, yeah, reinforcement is available, and it is time to do these things. Okay, so what does this look like? This is a very useful visual. Sorry, ladies can't see it here. But as we move up the hierarchy, we're coming closer to the least intrusive prompts. So we start off at the bottom with the most intrusive, that being physical, full physical, and then something a little less intrusive. And as we go up, we get to the top, which is naturally occurring cue. Environment. Yeah, we start from the least intrusive down to the most intrusive. So going. Yes. You have the handout? I didn't get a chance to look at it.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay? Okay, good. Yeah, so the idea is the more you go up, the least intrusive it is, the more independent the client's being, and when you go down, the more assistance they require.
Okay.
So that's the hierarchy. So let's begin with us going up. So starting with the most intrusive prompt to the least intrusive. This is another way of saying it would be errorless learning. Because the idea is here, if we're teaching a client a brand new skill, let's say we introduce a new goal in either the ISP or the BIP, then we're essentially starting from scratch. they're not going to be familiar with it. And so we're going to want to set them up for success. So then that way, if we are going to teach them something, we can make sure that there's minimal chance for error to occur. Because again, we want to be able to reinforce and reward when they're able to give us the correct response. If they're not able to, then we can't reinforce that. So typically, we will start with the most intrusive prompt, that being either full physical or a full verbal prompt, depending, again, on the skill. And they're going to get it guaranteed 100% of the time, because again, it's full hand over hand, or we're giving them the entire verbal statement. So they get it right. Yay, good job. And as they're able to demonstrate that they can do with this prompt, we then step it down a little bit. We reduce the level of intrusion by going down to, let's say, a modeling prompt. We know they can perform the physical motor move, but now let's see if they can do that with only a model. And then that goes down to, let's say, a visual, until the idea would be for a naturally occurring cue to be able to elicit the response. How about we take a look at some examples? So this would be teaching the learner how to request my turn. Start with this one.
My turn.
My turn.
My turn.
My turn.
Good point.
My turn.
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 My turn. My turn.
My turn. So you see there, he began with the full model, the full demonstration of the request, my turn. And as the successful trials began to come, he began to fade it until she was able to do it independently. Now, it usually doesn't happen that fast, suffice to say, but just for terms of demonstration, that's usually how it play out over the course of a few sessions, few days, few weeks, how it naturally would then get faded because the learner has had experience and has had that reinforced. What about with motor skill, like cleaning up? Let's take a look.
Hey, Mark, do you want to go to the ball pit or the swing pit?
Ball pit, ball pit, ball pit.
Nice. Okay, first we have to clean up before we go to the ball pit. All right, let's clean up the blocks. All right, clean up the blocks. Good. Clean up the blocks. Oh, let's try again. Clean up the blocks. Very good. Clean up the blocks. Way to go, Mark. Clean up the block. All right. And
So you see there, she used quite a number of different prompts. It began with the full physical, so she grabbed him by the arm, and then it was just a simple tap, physical guidance. And at some point, it was a movement prompt. So she was tapping on the block for him to be able to put it away. And of course, he was able to do that with the last couple of pieces. And then one more. Let's do this one-word request.
ball, ball. Very nice. Ball. 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 Nice job. Ball. Ball. Play with the ball.
So you see, she began with the full ball, very loud, and then it got quieter and less pronounced. Until, again, it doesn't typically happen that fast, but the individual was able to just emit the word ball without any prompting. So that is the goal. Okay. So that is most to least. Now let's go back down the hierarchy and talk about least to most. So here, we are already assuming that the skill or the goal is already under the client's repertoire. They are able to do it. However, they may still need some prompting to get it right. It's kind of the same idea as the total task chain, where you're prompting where you need to throughout the steps. I don't think I included this example, but the next example is on there. So we will start off with letting the individual respond to the natural cue. Let's say the skills for them to be able to pick up the phone and answer it. So the natural cue would be the phone ring. But let's say they don't pick it up right away. Then we can either add a visual or a gesture. The visual may say something like, oh, when you hear the phone ring, you pick it up. But a visual or a gesture, you can just point at the phone when it's ringing. Verbal would, of course, be giving the instruction, pick up the phone. Model, you would be demonstrating the picking it up, whether it be with the actual phone itself, or if you were to give them one of these. And then physical, last resort, would be if you physically guide their hand or arm to pick up the phone for them to answer it. So this is a more banal example, but I think one that we've encountered throughout days here would be something like this. So let's say we're working with a client for them to transition. The natural occurring cue for them to go on the outing would be either them seeing the van approach if they're by the window, or if we provide them the information that, oh, it is time to go on the outing. That may appear to be a verbal prompt, but it actually isn't, because if a client is inside here, they have no way to have a natural cue that the van is outside. Let's say you have someone like, I don't know, Pam, who's sitting right there. She's not going to know that the van's there unless we tell her. So that itself could be a natural occurring cue. Let's say they needed something a little bit more, so we can, of course, provide them with a gesture that, oh, hey, it's outside. Verbal would actually be the instruction, oh, it is time to get your stuff, and let's go on the outing. And then physical, again, would be to physically guide them to where they need to go to make that transition. But again, the idea with least to most is we begin with seeing how they respond to the naturally occurring cue, and then go from the least intrusive prompt to what would be the most intrusive. But ideally, we never, ever go down here. I have an example. How about that?
Least to most prompting now. Missy, what's a little
So least most prompting, least most prompting the gestural prompts. That's not saying anything that physically hands on them, just kind of points the item or just hands. Let's say open the door, you get points to the door. Next year we have the verbal prompts, which is telling them what to do. So to open the door. To be a physical prompts, which that would be hand over hands, either having them actually turn the doorknob to open the door, or physically prompting them to the door. And with that, so you can always do a partial prompt, so that's going to be a full. So for example, if I want to have John pick up the eraser, so I would start with the gestural. So first of the man, pick up the eraser. Well, he did it on independently, so that's right. No. But it's independent prompts. So a gestural prompt would be, hey, fix it up. Pitch up, John. Here's an M&M. But if you didn't compile that, then actually we pick up the eraser. So once again, you would restate the demand typically in a neutral tone, so you want to give too much praise or attention for that because it was not compliant to begin with. And then lastly, that means to focus on prompts. So gestural didn't work, verbal didn't work, so that would be hand over hand. That's how we pick up the eraser. But in that instance, if you want to do a partial prompt, that could be simply like 2 fingers at the wrist, more of a guiding you to do it. And then with a partial verbal, that could be to say that half of the demand, not really the whole one. But typically, you would save the partial verbal prompts for verbal response versus a physical time command.
So just to let you know, I played a little hardball with Missy over here. I gave her a hard time at the beginning, but that is definitely how you do from Lisa most prompting. She played it very well today. Is there any other examples you could give us?
Well, hand washing seems to be a big ad right now, which is really fantastic, especially now, getting a lot of attention. So like with hand washing, you may want to use more prompting if you have a kiddo who does know how to wash their hands. They can do it, but they might do the whole thing in 7 seconds. Which really they recommend you do it for at least 20 seconds. So with that, you kind of redirect them and do that least most prompting to wash their hands and then on to the same thing.
See, I think you did an excellent job of explaining these to most prompting. It's been a pleasure having you on today. Guys, you don't have Melanie, as you can see, but tune into our next episode if you have it.
No, we don't need their whole switch in there. Yeah, so that is least to most. I really like that example with the hand washing because it is one of the ways we can increase the duration of it. Other than that, yeah, we have a good grasp on that. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about time delay prompting. This involves giving the individual the opportunity to respond before we introduce a prompt. Because all too often we can be very quick to prompt to just ensure that it is errorless, that they are getting the correct response. However, we may also build this dependence on them if they're expecting the prompt to come. So we want to create a little bit of a space, a little bit of a window for them to be able to respond. And if they emit the error, then we can implement the error correction procedure, whether it be least to most or most least. But the idea is, yeah, we want them to be independent. So we give them the space to respond, and we only prompt when we need to. So there are a few types of time delay prompting. So the first one is second delay, or 0 seconds. This essentially, yeah, you just provide the prompt right at the moment of the instruction or the SD. This is initially where you would start, and as the client demonstrates compliance and cooperation with the prompt, we would then move on to a progressive delay, so they can respond with 0 seconds, just fine. How about we add a 3-second delay? Would they respond then? Let's say they are. Great. How about we make the delay even longer, 5 seconds? And then we increase it to the point where it's resembling the naturally occurring response under the cue. That is something that I like to do to probe to see whether or not a client has a skill down or where there is progress to be made. Yeah, there are times where a client just walks up to me, let's say, and I know what they want. They probably want something to be played on the TV, or they need help with something, but I just wait. I just wait and see what they would say. And sometimes, yeah, that is enough for them to say, help, or I want that. So yeah, let's see what this looks like in practice.
Today we're gonna identify these objects. When I say an object, we're gonna point together. Are you ready? Okay. Point to the fork. And pointing. Point to the neck. And pointing. Point to the spoon. Yes, that is the spoon. All right, now when I say an object, you're gonna point. If you need help, wait, and I will help you. Are you ready to work? Okay. Point to the fork. Point to the spoon. Point to the knife. This is the point to the knife. Point to the knife. Still working, Maria.
Oh, that was louder. That was much louder than I thought it was going to be. That surprised me. That shocked me. Yeah, so as you can see, the first initial instructions, 0 seconds from the prompt and the instruction. They did it pretty much at the same time. And as she demonstrated understanding, then she introduced the delay. So it wasn't as quick. Okay, so that is time delay. Now we can look at stimulus fading. So this is when we change how the stimulus looks based on the type of stimulus prompts we're using to make the answer less obvious. So again, coming back to what we were talking about on Monday with redundancy prompts, instead of making them much more obvious, we're reducing them to reflect the natural environment. You guys remember the example of the big sad face and the two other faces from Monday? Yeah. So the stimulus fading procedure for that would be to make the sad face smaller. And I think this example is going to involve tracing. So the individual is going to write out a letter. And as you'll see, the lines for them to trace will become less and obvious to the point where they're able to correctly write the letter on their own. Let's see what that looks like.
Trace the J. 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 Okay. Draw J.
Even his pen, his marker was starting to fade along with the stimulus. How do you think that? But as you guys could see here, it's really obvious what he needs to draw. But as we got further down, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can hardly see that. That is the stimulus being faded. And I think the most common one that we would encounter would just helping the clients write out their name. And we can do that with making the tracing lines much less apparent. Okay, really important considerations when it comes to prompting is when there are some things we kind of leave out or neglect that can really make or break the intervention. And this has probably been my 12th time talking about this, but we really want to move away from the full physical and full verbal as soon as we can. That way we can avoid the chances of prompt dependency occurring. Because if we're introducing the most intrusive prompts all the time, then it's a really easy way for the individual to be dependent on it and kind of expect it to be the case that, oh, I can only perform this if I receive this level of help. And the lady in the video mentioned this, but it's incredibly crucial to match the type of prompt with the skill. So what do you mean by that? For physical skills that require motor movement, we want to stick with physical prompts to get the individual to do them. We don't want to mix in verbal prompts, because then we're making it dependent on something that's not based in the response, because that in itself can lead to prompt dependency. Same thing for verbal skills. I mean, there's not a real way you can physically guide somebody to emit a verbal response. For instance, you can ask somebody a simple question, how are you? And for them to respond good, there's no real way to move their bodies in such a way for them to say good or fine. You guys remember Clever Hans, the horse that could supposedly do math? And as it turns out, it couldn't. All it was doing was looking at the individuals, watching it as it tapped its hoofs. And as it approached the right answer, they started cheering. And when they started cheering, they knew, the horse knew, that is when I should stop, because I'll get a treat at the end. So we can unintentionally add these prompts, these small little cues to tell the individual of when to stop. And if we do that, well, they're not really learning the skill now, are they? They're just learning to pay attention to our inadvertent prompts. So that is something else we want to consider. Yeah, and just to kind of bring it all up to summary. Yeah, prompting is how we get the individual to answer. When we first start off, we of course want to implement. But then as the individual gets accustomed to performing the correct response, then we begin to fade that. And as we begin fading that, then we want to implement the least intrusive prompt possible.
Answer. Question?
Yes, guys, any questions, any clarifications?
Okay. Can you clarify this important consideration?
Yes.
Go back there.
Which one, Willie?
Important consideration. Try to move past for physical and verbal prompting
Yes,
as soon as possible to avoid prompt dependency.
yes.
So how could we apply this one?
Yes,
For
great question.
example, it's time for outing.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
so going
client
back to this example.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The client doesn't know
Mhm.
whether they're going out or not,
Yes,
except of course, except Mike. Always
sure.
he intend to go out.
Yeah.
Just like example for Jonathan.
Yes,
They won't consider van approaching.
Mhm.
Okay.
yes,
So when this time is to consider, you're talking about to move past all physical and verbal prompting.
yes,
So how could they know that? How these people will know that they're going for outing?
yes. So in that case, the natural occurring cue, instead of it being them seeing the van approach, it will be us telling them, "Oh, hey, the van is here. Let's go on the outing."
Okay.
That will be the natural cue, telling them that it is time to go on the outing.
But still,
And yeah, but that is different than the verbal instruction. Oh, grab your stuff and move outside because it is time to go on the van. It is different. I know it can seem that they're both verbal statements, but one would be something that naturally occurs. Oh, the van's here. Let's go on the outing. Versus give him the instruction. Oh, grab your lunch bag and go outside because the van is here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Mhm.
How about this must the skill use physical prompts for physical skills and
Yes.
verbal prompts for verbal skill?
Yes.
And so can, for example,
Mhm.
how to do it during a time of lunchtime?
Yeah. So it's going to depend on the skill. So, for instance, if it is, if you have somebody who, let's say,
Because you said here to reduce the physical and verbal dependency.
yes,
So how could you do it?
yeah, general rule of thumb is once an individual can cooperate with 3 to 5 prompts at that level, then you would move on to the next lesser intrusive prompt.
So just like what we are doing with Jonathan.
Yes.
In terms of lunch, I don't say lunch. I'll just take the food, heat it up, and put that on the table, and he will come.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
So that is what
the food, yes, because at that point the food is natural occurring cue that it is time for him to have lunch.
so there's no need for verbal or physical prompting then.
Yes, but in that case, the skill in question is him transitioning from going for whatever he was doing to having lunch.
Okay.
The skill itself in question is the transition. And transition, ideally, you want it to be a more physical leaning than verbal, because you don't want them to be completely dependent on the verbal. So what you're doing is exactly right, Willie.
Yes. So dependency for physical already or verbal is
Yes.
been eliminated.
Yes.
Just show the food, and he will come.
Yeah.
This is what you,
The presence of the food is
that's a natural cue then.
yes, exactly
Okay.
that. Exactly that.
Clear.
Great question. Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly how it should be done.
Thanks.
What if you're teaching like time? Where it's, I don't know, like for example,
Yes,
he loves doing, he likes helping taking out the garbage,
sure.
and he looks forward to it throughout the day. But instead of he's gotten to a point where just 1 o'clock, right?
Mhm.
1 o'clock, and then he knows to grab gloves and then help out. But I'm just saying 1 o'clock, not necessarily saying
Yes.
1 o'clock. It's time to, do whatever
Yeah.
it is. Is that something that?
Yeah, because from what I can recollect, yeah, Mike doesn't really demonstrate that great awareness of time. So the cue, 1 o'clock, does not really mean much to him.
Kind of just like the mathematics.
Yes. So in that circumstance, what I think may help him better would be a visual schedule.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was thinking like he knows, what he hears is the 1 o'clock, not the
Yes.
concept necessarily of time. But
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like kind of how to piggyback off 1 o'clock, like you said with the visual schedule.
Yes.
So kind of
Yeah.
like to attach the verbal with what the visual is. In his case,
Yes.
because he's been kind of what's the word? I guess showing a little interest in time. Like he'll grab my watch before 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
11 o'clock being lunch.
Mhm. Yeah.
In that sort of manner.
Yeah. So what we could do too is with the visual schedule, also have the time markers on there. So then those numbers would have a little bit more significance to him. So along with the image of lunch and then cleaning up, you can put a big old 11 and a big old 1. So then those could also derive the control.
Uh-huh.
And from there, we can kind of visual cues may not be the worst thing for them to kind of end at as far as dependency goes, because we use visuals all the time. You can think of taking notes, sticky Post-its. Those are visual prompts, as if you can think about it that way. But yeah, let's try to come up with something for Mike, see if we can make him the schedule to include those things. So then you can, instead of just providing him the verbal response, you can just point and gesture at the schedule and see where he is at. Yeah, great point, Jonathan. Anything else, guys? No. Yeah.
What?
Thought I heard through whispers, yes. Okay. My case. An instructor is teaching John to use the vending machine. She points to the coin slot without touching it. What type of prompt is this? Yes, it is a gestural prompt. Very good. When implementing least to most hierarchy for a known skill, like answering the phone, what should be the very first thing the client should encounter?
Natural cue.
Everybody's saying it. Yes, natural cue. Very last thing they should encounter would be a physical
And the
prompt.
conditioning, and that's the
verbal
natural
prompt.
cue.
Yes. Before we move on, let's say they don't pick up the phone by hearing the ring, natural cue. What would you then introduce?
What did you say?
Let's say they don't pick up the phone
Okay.
right away from hearing the ring. How do we then prompt them to,
Well, first
Answer.
maybe gestural, then
Yes.
verbal.
yes, gestural?
Yeah.
Yes, because verbal, that's a little more intrusive
Yes.
than the gesture.
Gestural, just point. Oh,
Yes, exactly. Hey, pick up the phone. Someone's calling you. You are using a progressive time delay to fade a prompt. You start with a 0-second delay. What should be your next step?
that would be gradual increase. Over time. B.
Everyone saying B?
Yeah, that's B.
Yes, that's right.
Definitely.
So, okay, they do well at 0 seconds. How about we introduce 3 seconds? You can see how they do. And then we go up to 5 seconds. Yes. Very good. Staff is teaching a client to identify a named card by making the correct card much bigger than the others, but then making the color less vivid. What is this an example of?
Stimulus fading.
Everybody in agreement? Stimulus fading? Yes, it is A, stimulus fading. Good. You're teaching a verbal skill like labeling a picture. What type of prompt should you prioritize? Yes, here and B.
Verbal.
Yes, verbal prompts. Yeah, I mean, I can't even think of a way to do labeling a picture with physical prompt unless they're signing. Yeah, something to think about. What is the primary clinical danger of inadvertent prompting, also known as the clever Hans effect? What is the concern here?
What is the clinical independent function?
Hearing, I think I heard B, I'm hearing C.
I think letter C.
Everyone in agreement?
Yeah.
Yes. They look like they know the skill. Clever Hans looked like he was counting and was doing math and basic arithmetic, but it was actually just responding to accidental or inadvertent prompts and cues. In a most elite hierarchy, once a client is successful with a partial physical prompt, what type of typically next level prompt do we move down to?
Once upon successful with
Okay.
this project,
Hearing B, B.
that would be modeling. Modeling.
Yes, thank you guys. Yes, modeling. Yeah, we can get away with simply grabbing them with 2 fingers, the elbow. We know they can perform the motor skill, so how about we just demonstrate it for them and see if they copy? And typically, an individual would already have imitation in their repertoire at this point, so we can probably get away with it. You're using 0-second delay. What does this mean? 0-second delay.
A.
A? Triple A? Yes, they provide on the exact same time. Think back to the video where the lady pointed to the fork right as you deliver the instruction, point to the fork. Yes. Two more, guys. If a client is currently failing to respond to the model prompt in a least to most hierarchy, what should be the next step we take?
D.
Yes. Yes. In one of the previous questions, we talked about fading the prompt. So we're going from partial physical to the model. Here, we're going least to most. So we want to do that in backwards. Can't get away with given the model prompt. So now we're going to introduce a partial physical to get the correct response. Yes. Last one. In a most to least hierarchy, moving from a full physical to physical is an example of what? Prompt fading, stimulus fading, prompt dependency, error correction.
A.
Bada bing. Got it. Yes, prompt fading. The full physical is a lot more intrusive than the partial. So we are fading the prompt. There is no manipulation of the stimulus. This is the complete opposite of prompt dependency. And no error has occurred, so we can't say it's error correction. Yeah, awesome job, guys.
Questions?
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah.
No, you guys had some good ones, though. I appreciate
Time to go.
the clarifications. Yeah, well. Yeah, well, that's it then. We'll pick it up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.